Thank you so much for joining us today. So this is what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to talk about why culture matters. Then we're going to talk about what you can do about your culture. And also how to identify and embrace opportunities. But first, let us tell you a little more about us.
So I'm Jon Liu. I'm the lead UI UX engineer at name.com. I've been there for about 6 years and mostly just work on the front end, making sure everything is as user-friendly as possible.
And I'm Daniels. I am the senior product manager at Name. I've been there for a little over 5 years, and I also run our product team. We've been working together at Name for a little over 5 years, and this is pretty much a normal day for us.
Name.com sells domain names, websites, hosting, a lot more. And yes, we have a keg. And we're going to talk a lot more about Name.com in a little bit. But first, what is culture? Great company culture means employees feel satisfied. It means you're happy when you're at work. And if you're not happy, maybe it's a culture, maybe it's something you're dealing with. But great company culture is essentially happiness. This is really important. Perks are not culture. Free lunch, swag, even kegs, they don't automatically give you culture credibility. It's, in some instances, has a negative effect.
A bad company can hide behind their perks and mask the fact that the culture is really lacking. But if you already have a strong culture, then perks can add more. It's like frosting on a cake.
One really prominent example of perks not equals culture is Google. We've all heard stories about working at Google. It's long been known as one of the best places for perks. In fact, in 2016, Google was named the best place to work by Fortune magazine. Why not? They have amazing perks, right? Pre-prepared meals a day, unlimited snacks, coffee, tea, personal fitness, health clinics, on-site oil changes, this spa truck. I could go for a spa truck at this conference. Bike repairs, napas, laundry, haircuts, etc. I mean, the list is really extensive. And perks were noted as being excellent. But what's really important when you're talking about culture, the employees didn't even mention the perks. We're really more interested in working on great projects that had a really big impact with great people. One of the employees quoted in the Fortune article was saying it's really valuable to find a company where software is built at a massive scale, and we have tools, access, infrastructure, really smart people, and you feel like you're always learning. And that's something that doesn't happen at all companies. Another employee also said that company culture truly makes workers feel like they're valued and respected as a human being and not a cog in a machine.
So, good culture. Here are some companies that we think are doing it right. First is HubSpot. I mean, they do some web stuff.
We don't actually know. Is anyone here from HubSpot?
They do HubSpot stuff. I think it's like marketing platform. But what's really cool is they publish their culture code online in this accessible format, and they're upfront and forward about their commitment to culture, and they have a strong process in the industry. They're always on the top of various best place to work rankings. My favorite thing about their culture code is that it's constantly a work in progress. As a product manager, you know that I like being iterative. So they say, according to the website, they have updated it more than 25 times. So it's constantly growing and changing as they grow and change. So this is a good example of good culture in action. It's transparent, it's actionable, and it's iterative.
Any good culture talk has to include Zappos. They're not a shoe company, they're a customer service company. When Zappos was early on, Tony Hsieh, the founder, wrote a New York Times bestseller book called Delivering Happiness. And it's about Zappos and a relentless focus on company culture. And we highly recommend reading it. It's still very relevant today, even though it's probably 10 years old at this point. And then you turn it into a separate consulting company called Delivering Happiness. And you can hire them to come to your own workplace and help you establish or build great culture in your company. One of the great things about the Zappos culture code is their relentless focus on company culture and how Zappos has really narrowed it down to 10 core values that guide everything they do at the company. And it's right there on their website. You can find it at the footer every time you load the page. There's another new culture code. It's expected that every person in the company abides and agrees to the company culture. And after a new employee finishes their initial training, they're even offered $3,000 to leave the company that day and never work there again. They're that serious about having the best culture fits and the best employees that fit in with the company.
All right, so there are some culture bad actors out there. We're not naming names, but a certain tech company recently had a culture crisis. And in fact, another article came out yesterday. I don't know if you're able to see that one. But their company culture took a major hit last year. Some of the things that came out were they were working on projects that didn't really, the employees didn't feel aligned with their values that they signed up for when they were working at the company, including government contract that could have been used to facilitate killing people faster. Also a search engine for China that censored out results. A lot of the employees didn't really enjoy that. There have also been a lot of sexual harassment, intimidation, and discrimination stories that are coming out about how it's been handled by HR and how the workers just don't feel valued. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad place now, but it does mean that they're in a culture crisis and they're currently in rehab.
There's another company out there that has a bit of a reputation at this point. Again, we're not naming names, but 2017 was not a good year for this. And one of the major things that happened, there were several major things, but here's a few highlights of sort of some of the issues that they had. Only 15% of the company's engineering, product management, and scientist roles were filled by women. And a manager threatened to beat an underperforming employee's head in with a baseball bat. The director shouted homophobic slurs at a subordinate during a heated confrontation in a meeting. And this is my favorite, I guess. Between bouts of drinking and gambling, employees used cocaine in the bathrooms of a private party, and managers groped several female employees. One employee hijacked a private shuttle bus, filled it with friends, and took it for a joyride around the strip in Vegas. This is their company culture. Maybe you heard about a recent one too that came out yesterday, that this certain company was also spending $200,000 a year on balloons, and they recently stopped that practice. So it's tough.
We've all probably experienced bad culture, maybe not that bad, but I want to talk a little bit about one of my personal stories. When I was working a data entry position at a large corporation, the bad culture just made me miserable. We were allotted 10 sick days per year, but you were automatically written up if you used more than 5. We also weren't allowed to wear headphones in our data entry positions because the customer service representatives couldn't listen to music since they were on phone calls. And even though we weren't on phone calls, it was still just like nobody listens to music. My breaking point was when I would stay up until 2 a.m. on Sundays because I just did not want to fall asleep. Because falling asleep meant I had to wake up and start my work week. And that's just a horrible feeling.
That's bad. I had a similar experience in another workplace where the company culture was one of demanding more, and just take, and use up your employees until they were just discarded. Some quotes from managers of the company were, "We know this isn't sustainable, but we can always just hire more replacements. And just because we give you vacation time doesn't mean that you're allowed to take it." And for me, my final breaking point was sitting in the parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the building, and just wondering, what if I didn't get out of the car today? What if I didn't go inside? What's the worst that could happen? The moral of the story is be nice to your people. They're real people. They're not assets or cogs in a machine. Okay, so let's all take a moment, just breathe out all that negative energy.
All right, so back to name.com. Between 2013 and 2018, we survived 5 splits, mergers, and acquisitions. All right, so I'm going to walk you through this timeline. So name.com, founded in 2001, very long run of just doing their thing. Then 2013, we were acquired by Demand Media. In 2014, Demand quickly spun that into SpinCo and grouped us with a few of the other things that they owned. Also in 2014, SpinCo became RightSide. And then we went public and we ran as a public company for 3 years. In 2017, Rightside was acquired by Donuts. And in 2018, Donuts was acquired by Avery Partners. So now Name.com is a subsidiary of Donuts Inc., which is owned by Avery Partners. Whew.
There's a lot. When you go through all those mergers and acquisitions, there's definitely going to be culture conflicts. And culture clashes happened a lot at different parts of those different transitions. It happens so frequently with some of our corporate overlords that we had to keep the bullshit meter to keep track. It tends to stay green most of these days. Sometimes it felt like the company culture was intentionally under attack. Bad policy decisions were made that challenged the existing culture. And one of the biggest issues was deciding the fate of a company from 1,200 miles away. It's not a good way to interact with your employees.
Shortly after one acquisition, the HR manager showed up for their first visit and fired a lot of people. So every visit after, for the rest of the time that company owned us, we were full of dread and fear of what was going to happen, to the point that they would have to preface every visit with, "No major changes, we're just coming to hang out." The culture of our previous owners was pretty much disrespect and disregard for others in the company. It was most visible in the way that they handled meetings. They rarely started on time. The attendees were late. There were always last-minute changes, and meeting culture was just in complete disarray.
One memorable meeting that we had was when someone from the corporate office wanted to schedule a meeting with us to talk about how can we integrate the Name.com culture into the overall corporate culture. So we scheduled the meeting, we had it all set, we showed up and we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and they never showed up. And that was a perfect example of sort of corporate culture that was just missing the mark. They did send an email later trying to schedule and not even realizing what they had done. Even with all those challenges, our culture still outlasted all of those acquisitions, and we still work there today. But sometimes it was like being on Survivor.
So what does it take to build a great culture that can live on its own? This is how we built a culture that survived the dark times. It outlasts individuals and buyouts and mergers.
So first, everyone on Twitter has an opinion about culture, right? This is Harry Roberts responding to Wes Boss about slacks and memes and all of those wonderful animated GIFs that we all like sometimes, or don't. Pro tip, if you find that your work Slack is constantly overloaded with GIFs and memes, try hiring some adults. Luckily, my friend Katie responded with, "Counterpoint, capitalism intentionally crushes all joy and self-expression in the workplace in an attempt to make workers soulless cogs in a money-making machine. GIFs and memes bring fun and enjoyment to work and allow us to connect with each other as human beings." The thing is, everyone isn't wrong. Culture is unique to each workplace and individuals that make up that organization, so it's going to be different everywhere. But Name.com is definitely all about the GIF and meme culture, especially when gently shaming an employee who left dirty dishes in the sink. This is an amazing story that's actually on the Name.com blog, and it's all about Ryan, our compliance manager, who left his LaCroix can sitting in the sink. And luckily, our security cameras caught him in action. The stream of memes and GIFs ensued. It's a really good story. Regardless of what kind of office you work in, all culture should start with rule number 1. It's amazing because Kim alluded to this morning during the initial keynote. Basic decency. Be excellent to each other. Bill had it right, and also party on, dudes. Treat everyone at work the way you want to be treated, but always maintain a level of basic decency. The culture at Name.com is so strong that we can literally pie someone in the face and still be above that baseline. It might seem that we're not being decent to each other, but we actually are.
Nick loves pie. Rule number 2, know the people you work with. This is just really important to us. Understand who your coworkers are and what makes them tick. Why do they show up every day at work, and what motivates them? I like to get 250 steps per hour. It's very important to me. So I get up, my Fitbit rings, and I just go and I walk in the kitchen in circles. And my coworkers know this about me, and sometimes they join me in support.
Rule number 3, be yourself at work and bring your authentic self to work. It's not worth it to show up every day and pretend to be someone who you're not. And if your workplace isn't accepting of that, maybe it's not the right culture fit for you. We value authenticity more than almost anything else in our employees. When the environment is open and welcoming to everyone who is themselves, great things can happen. Our current director of engineering actually applied just because of this video on our YouTube channel. And now he shows to all the candidates during interviews to see how they want to as well.
Rule number 4, work should be a safe space. One of the biggest mistakes made at Name.com in recent history was when one of our senior software engineers lost over $1 million overnight because of a misplaced comma. And he continued to work there for 4 years. So making mistakes is okay. Not knowing things is okay.
And rule number 5, listen, learn, and support each other. We do our best to identify and fix problems quickly and efficiently together. And our dev team even has a designated role for this called Batman. Our dev team helps support with customer issues or bugs or other issues that might come up that are too difficult or more complicated than they have time to solve. And we all do it together. It's a team effort. Everyone is there to support one another.
All right, so great culture doesn't happen by accident. It can happen organically, but you also have to cultivate it. It's a fine line between overpowering and mandating a certain culture and letting it form on its own. So a top-down approach to building culture doesn't last through mergers and acquisitions. One person can't build all of the culture. So it begins by empowering everyone with the ability to drive the culture bus.
When everyone participates and takes ownership, it can withstand the changes of leadership or mergers or acquisitions, and it's more robust. Some of the employee-led initiatives that we had at Name.com included Harry Potter's birthday party, a pride party, diversity and inclusion training, and my personal favorite, Taco Bell Day. It's one example of how we did this at Name.com, giving each employee a chance to say, I want this thing, let me have this, and letting them have it. It's pretty basic. One of my favorite examples of all time of how this happened at Name.com was our annual scavenger hunt. Nick decided he wanted to host a scavenger hunt. It's half a day of running around Denver, solving clues and finding hidden tokens. He pitched the idea to senior leadership, who could have said, no, it's too expensive, we don't have the time for that, it's not the right kind of event, or any number of excuses. Instead, they said yes, and they empowered him to do it. Nick planned it all out on his own, and it was a huge success. Now it's 100% employee-driven, and teams take turns planning it out. And one year we even had a murder mystery version. It takes a small budget, it's just a few $100s. It's one of the best events of the year and the most looked forward to by our employees. The employee initiative is now a major part of our culture. We just completed the 5th annual scavenger hunt, and Angela's team finally won. We were lucky enough to capture the moment they found out they won on our security cameras. This year, the theme was the 2008 blockbuster hit Liam Neeson's Taken. An object of great value was taken by the planners and hidden somewhere safe. The teams had to use their special problem-solving skills to find and retrieve their missing valuables.
That is the taste of sweet, sweet victory. All right, so you've got a great culture. How do you keep it? Don't be afraid to let it change. It's like a bonsai tree. You need to allow it to grow, but also shape it. So how do you shape it? Have the pulse of the feeling in the office. And have the power to influence it when it starts to dip. Make yourself happy at work is how we do this. So an example is the director of operations recently started doing like card tricks, magic tricks. He calls it cardistry. And so he'll walk around with a deck of cards and like show us the latest thing he's been working on. And that brings him extreme happiness. I get a little happy from it. For me, it is grabbing a few coworkers and we go to the empty office next door and do handstands and headstands or a hula hoop break in the middle of the day. For Jon Liu, it's always Taco Bell or a giant bag of Doritos. And our coworker Joseph puts out a candy station on his desk so people can just stop by, get a little sugar high, and say, hello, what's going on? So each one of these is a new branch on the culture tree.
And we haven't written down any of these specific culture keys and culture markers for our company. But we all know what the values are as a group together. Ask anyone at name.com and they'll probably tell you, oh, it's the people I work with, oh, it's Taco Bell. Whatever it is, people know. It's kind of like a group of friends that you hang out with. You all know what your values are and you share the same sort of ideas, but it's not something that has to be written down. A lot of times, corporate mission statements and core values end up just being something that the PR department or the marketing department wrote up and slapped on the website. And it's not always the true marker of the culture of the company.
Every new employee adds more to the company culture. So celebrate those individuals and their interests. When hiring, a lot of times we look for a culture fit. What if instead we change that to look for a culture add? So one example of a great culture add is our Director of Engineering, Joseph, who was hired in 2018. Before Joseph joined the team, we had a fun-loving culture that sometimes centered on pranks. Our most popular company video on YouTube is a stream of us endlessly scaring our Director of Marketing, Ashley. So Joseph, while also fun-loving, has added a level of structure and maturity that we just really didn't have before. I know, I can't tell, but while this sounds scary for a fun and loose culture, it's actually empowered us to all grow as employees and leaders. So we have more open and honest conversations with each other, and we have better processes in place, which allows us to work together towards company goals more effectively.
Just to be clear, he is trying to climb onto the top of the fridge. And then he hits the lights in his hand, and then he gives up. Joseph is a great example of a culture cheerleader, and we want to cultivate those culture champions, not just the bosses and managers, but anyone in the company who cares about being happy at work. Find those people at your workplace and empower them to lead your culture efforts. Timing is everything. When it comes to changing or growing your culture, you want to have that opportunity to do so when it's right. Mergers and acquisitions are actually the best opportunities for major culture shifts in the right direction. Our acquisition by Donuts in 2017 was an opportunity for us to launch Name.Gives, a little charity program that we wanted to run for a few years, but we just couldn't get approval for in the previous owners. Since 2017, we've been able to give away more than $25,000 of company money to local nonprofit Denver organizations. And it was because we just decided we were going to ask the brand new owners to let us do this and not let them say no. And it was that whole honeymoon phase of the acquisition where they said, sure, you can do that.
And do it together. Everyone carries the torch. We all just want to be happy at work. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We value openness and honesty, and we hold each other accountable. And finally, we try to stay grounded.
So, what did we learn today? What a leader can do to help build and maintain great culture. Listen to your employees. Lead by example. Be transparent and be appreciative when someone comes to you and wants to have that great next thing.
And as an employee, if you're not a manager, be a culture cheerleader. Find a place to start and just go do it. Voice your concerns, ask for what you want, and then be appreciative when you get what you want. And finally, build relationships. We like to say, find your work spouse, but in a non-red zone way.
So we did it. We made it. This is the end. We talked about why culture matters, what you can do about culture, and identifying and embracing opportunities. But we hope you feel like you have the right tools in your toolkit to make culture happen and keep it going at your workplace. But if you still aren't sure where to start, we've got a really easy step one. Something that has always worked really well for us. Find a place and just tape shit to the walls. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm not kidding. If you go out there and you find that one thing that you really think or want or need, print it out, tape it to the wall. It's going to be great. The culture will immediately change in your office. If you still don't know where to start, we actually put a meme for you on beyondthecake.co. If you go there, you'll see the entire talk we just gave. And at the very top, there's a very choice meme ready for you to download, print off, and stick up at your workplace.
Thank you for joining us today. If you you want to learn more about name.com, we have a table at Zeppelin. We'd love to chat with you. We are hiring engineers and support agents. And that is it.
Awesome, thank you. So we definitely left it short so that we can answer questions, like lots of questions, because we're very short. So, does anyone want to know anything about name.com, culture, gifts, memes, anything? Yeah.
So my workplace is finding itself in a kind of interesting spot where over the next month we're all going to start going remote, and that's definitely a good chance to change up what the culture is defined as. A lot of the examples we gave were very strict, like you have to be in person to have that kind of communication. I guess you have any thoughts or ideas on how to help rebuild that kind of culture once it gets completely obliterated at that point?
Yeah. So the question was, how can you like build and maintain culture with remote employees, right? Go ahead.
I worked remote for 5 years, and it wasn't a great culture of the company, but our team definitely stayed together with just constant communication. And back then we were using Messenger, but I love Slack as a tool. I don't know if that's a tool that you're using or something similar, but make sure Giphy's enabled. Yes. Make some emojis, like your own little emojis, channels that are specific to the needs of your team, your company. If there is maybe even a culture or just different topics, if your workplace will allow that sort of thing. And maybe try and do meetups if you can, if you're all in the same area. And if not, see if the work will sponsor, like at least just once a year, everyone getting together and building that team by doing a team building activity, but one that you all think is going to be fun and enjoyable.
I would argue that a lot of the rules of building great culture still do apply even in a remote company, right? Basic decency towards one another, building relationships with people, working together on the same problems. It's a lot harder because it does require that sort of unique remote style. But hopefully, yeah, it's something interesting. And I see a lot more companies are dealing with that right now as remote becomes more and more commonplace. And I know I've seen quite a few people giving presentations and talks about specifically remote culture. And so you might see those out and see what you can find. It's a great question. Thanks. Yeah, right.
I know this is one of those 10 cliches to ask in meetings, but does it scale? Like how big is name.com, and does this work when your company has 1,000?
Great question. The question was, does it scale as you get bigger, right? So name.com as a division of Donuts, which is owned by Abri, which is one of my investors. So we are about 35 people here in Denver, just right over on 14th and Tremont. And so our office size works really well for this, right? We know everyone knows each other. You know what people like and dislike, and that makes it really easy. But we're part of a bigger company that's about 100-ish, including a lot of remote employees from the bigger parent company. And culture is harder when it comes to dealing with them. We find it so much easier when you're working within your unit, within your small group, your team, that it does scale easier if you have little pockets of culture. The Google article that came out recently this week was talking about massive, right, like hundreds of thousands of people, whatever, and how much of a struggle it was to grow through that experience, because what worked for them when they were 50 did not work when they were 10,000, and how much of a struggle it was for them to overcome it. I wish I had a great answer for you, but I don't. But it's definitely something that if you're aware of it, you can stay ahead of it and help, drive that culture in the direction that you want to see it go, and find those other culture cheerleaders that want to be a part of it and help everyone go on the same path.
And I think that's definitely the most important thing that will scale is just the listening. Like if you have employees telling you, I don't feel safe at work, I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel happy for these reasons, and you're actively working to address that, then that is really important. And I do think the squad model that a lot of the larger companies have definitely helps with that as well, because you do have your pockets of culture, but making sure that you have overarching values that all of those pockets kind of can fall into is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know how you address, this term cultural fit. So I heard Angela say culture add, and I wanted to know through your hiring process, how do you assess for a culture add?
That's right. The question is, how do you assess for a culture add versus just a culture fit? I think it's interesting because, a lot of companies, when you're out hiring and you're doing interviews or interviewing someone, you're like, in the back of your head, is this a culture fit? Are they going to fit in with the rest of us? But every person in the room is thinking that at the same time. And every person has an actual different idea of what that is. You might think the culture of your company is one thing, but Angela might think it's another. And an ad really specifically is like, this person has this unique trait that I really think would benefit us as a whole. Maybe it's looking for those holes. You're like, we really don't have someone who is, this type of employee. We need that. Someone who's really organized, or someone who's just going to bring a lot more personality to the team than we don't have. And then you're looking for someone that can fill that void when you are interviewing. And it might be something you need to explicitly define with your team before you go into interviews and say, what do we need? Where are our gaps right now, and how can we find something to add to them?
And I think calling it out is important, and having an environment where you can. Hiring Joseph is a great example. And I don't feel bad saying this because I talked to him about it. But when we first had our get together and should we hire this person? People were like, I don't know. He was really stuffy and he only talked about engineering. And I was like, I don't know. I asked what he did for fun, and he talked about going to the ballet, and he likes theater, and he seemed like a cool guy. And I was calling them out on just because he didn't do keg stands does not mean that he's not a culture fit. So I think being able to just say, hey, what do you mean by that? And I don't think that's exactly accurate or fair, is a great step.
How do you bridge the gap between departments? I know engineers and product tend to butt heads about things. Product wants more. Engineers are like, we need to fix up some tech debt or something. How have you kind of handled that?
Yeah. So the question was, how do you handle conflicts between teams and bridge the gap between them when there's something that's not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great story.
Go.
All right. In our company, I think product development, we were skipping happily together most of the time. But product marketing, we had some riffs. It was West Side Story a little bit. And John, actually, this is his story, but I'm telling it. He was you guys, we're not on the same page. We're not communicating well. Everyone's mad on both sides. You know what we got to do? Product marketing, Chris Kendall. So we went and just got, I don't know how.
I made a formal invitation that I delivered to the marketing department and said, will you please come with us to the Chris Kendall on Denver 16th Street Mall?
Yep, and we got out cash, because they only take cash, and then expensed it later without, we're just this is a thing we did, it's fine. And it was, everything wasn't magically better the next day, but it was a step of the first step was acknowledging that it was not working and that we needed to spend time together. Another thing that I will say on this is radical candor. I think that book and practice really helped us a lot. So we do care about each other, and we are all working towards the same goal. So being able to just say, hey, you're making me upset when you say this thing. This is what I'm hearing. This is how I'm receiving it. And just being able to have open conversations from a place where we all care about each other and care about the work.
I know there's definitely a lot of challenges between engineers and a lot of departments, right? I mean, there's the stereotype, right? I'm an engineer, Joseph's an engineer. We all fit that mold, maybe. I don't so much, but most people. Anyway, so knowing who you're talking to and understanding who the individual is, that kind of goes back to knowing each other, definitely goes a long ways. And sometimes it's a matter of I'm not coming over to the engineering office to just talk to you about this engineering thing today. I'm just going to come over and ask you what you did this weekend and what you're going to work on next, or something that is not work related, to build that relationship. So then when you need to start talking about work stuff, you have that foundation that definitely gives you something to build on. I know it's hard, a lot of challenging personalities, but it's possible. The $1 million comma guy was a very challenging personality, but it worked. We figured it out, and we all worked together happily for many years. Any other questions? Yeah.
what do you do if someone who was a cultural fit before, something happens and you have to rehabilitate or possibly like have that conversation? What does that look like, or have you guys been in that situation?
Yeah, the question is, what do you do with individuals that maybe were a fit but then ended up not being a fit, and how to deal with that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've definitely experienced that. Name.com is super focused on a great company culture, and it's amazing when people walk in the doors and like, wow, this is I didn't know you could have a place like this, because we try so hard, but we have misses all the time. We'll, every year or two we get someone that we're just like, man, we thought you were going to be a great fit, and it turns out you weren't a great fit, and also you weren't a great ad. You were a detractor towards our culture. And I don't think you're doing anyone any favors by trying to pretend that it might work or something might happen with that. I'm seeing this as a person who is not a manager and doesn't have to hire or fire anybody, and that's intentional. But I think it's the kind of situation where if you're honest with each other and really like, hey, look, you can tell, we know, we can tell. Like, let's either figure this out together. Maybe you're just misunderstood, or what you thought was working for you isn't. Or, you know what, maybe we should help you find something else somewhere else. It's a hard conversation to have. It's a hard thing to do. But I think it's more worthwhile to do those things than try and pretend like your culture is fine, because that's just going to create bigger rifts on everybody.
And I will say you can rehabilitate. There was a period at Maine where I was very unhappy, and like I was just a storm cloud. I have a very big personality, and so it was noticeable. We have an open office. It was very hard, and it really just took open conversations and the question of like, do you really want to be here? And if you do, what can you do to like be happy here, and what can we do? So it comes from both sides.
It definitely goes back to that slide of, are you happy? Yes, keep doing what you're doing. No, change something. And that's driven my career pretty well for a long time, just following that philosophy. We love talking to you guys. This was amazing. We'd be happy to stick around and have conversations. If you need a therapy session and just want to tell us about that really bad culture you're stuck in right now, please do. We'd love to hang out and chat. We've got a few minutes, and otherwise, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.